Don Pescara became the boss, and Lucia got married. They got her a husband from the countryside in Italy. He was found dead in a storage unit full of cash. But what he wanted mostly was to take us all down, get everyone arrested and convicted. But after a month, we found out that he liked young, so we kidnapped him and took him to the storage unit. Don Pescara was extremely angry. He took the gun from Luigi's hand and shot. It's been 15 years since I joined the Mafia. I spent all this time working together with Luigi. During our 15 years together, we left a lot of dead bodies behind us. A lot of people have been killed. All kinds of people. We killed gamblers, lawyers, business owners. And I don't know exactly how many people I have killed. I have stopped counting after 17 or maybe 22. Luigi and I were still working in the same line of work. Our mission now is to go take care of a lawyer. On the way there, Luigi brought up this topic of counting bodies. He said that as long as you're still counting, you can be sure that there is something still alive within you. And the moment you stop counting, you're probably dead inside. During the past 15 years, a lot of things have changed. Don Salvatore died 2 years ago and wished to be buried in Corleone, in the Sicily or Sicilia, in Italy. I never understood this concept. Most of the mafia bosses in the US were born here, and for the ones who were not born here, came to the US when they were very young. They spent their life here, and they have their families and the people who care for them here. But still they all want to be buried back in Italy. After Don Salvatore passed away, Don Pescara became the boss, and Lucia got married. They got her a husband from the countryside in Italy. It was an arranged marriage, and her husband came from Italy hungry for money. He started doing his own business on the side, selling some of the mafia products. 2 years after coming to the US, he was found dead in a storage unit full of cash. He OD'd and there was no one around to help him. Last week, the chief of police of Chicago called Don Pescara to let him know that he's cutting all links with the mafia. He is not protecting our operation anymore. And he doesn't want our money either. This didn't mean that the police is coming for us now. It just meant that we will try our best not to cross each other's paths. And we know how that can be hard in this line of work. The reason behind that decision was this new prosecuting attorney coming from New York. He knew things were going down in Chicago, and he wanted first to know why the police wasn't doing anything about it. But what he wanted mostly was to take us all down, get everyone arrested and convicted. The lowest sentences would be at least 40 years of prison time. This prosecuting attorney gathered the judges of Chicago, but none of them wanted to take our case. Because when those judges looked at the files and the proofs he had gathered, they knew that the prosecutions would result in minimum convictions of 30 to 40 years in prison at least. And they were all aware that if such a thing was to happen, the city would be filled with dead bodies, and that everyone involved and their families would be in big risk of being killed or tortured. When all doors were closed in his face, the prosecuting attorney went to the media and had a spot for speaking on the news. He talked really bad about the mafia and asked the people of Chicago if they were living in the United States, the land of freedom, or the land of the mafia and the killers and drug dealers. He suggested an independent committee of judges to come from New York to take care of this case. After his speech in the news, this story became everything people over the whole country were speaking about for weeks. And once he assembled his committee of judges, target letters were sent to almost everyone. A target letter is a document sent to someone to notify them that they are being the subject of an investigation. Everyone around me received a notice. Luigi and Don Pescara received letters as well, but I did not get one. The letters say that they are called to court because they are being the subject of an investigation, and the dates on the letters were the 15th of November. And we were still in mid-June. So we decided to have a meeting to discuss how we will solve this problem. We could not kill him. Getting rid of him in that way was out of question, because the way he did talk and the confidence he did have meant that he was backed by the FBI and probably some other powerful people in the country. And this had become a matter of public opinion as well. Everyone was talking about this and following it very closely. And the prosecuting attorney was not the same as a business owner, a lawyer, or a dirty cop. This is not a boss who you will shoot twice in the head and then go home and get some sleep. It was clear that his dream was to arrest all of us, not leave anyone from the mafia on the streets. He wanted to clean Chicago. Our first plan was to kidnap him, but we needed to find out everything about him first. Especially that he had many guards with him all the time. He was constantly surrounded by policemen and judges from the committee he did assemble from New York. After 2 weeks of surveillance, we didn't find out much about him. He spent most of his time between work and home. But after a month, we found out that he liked younger girls. But nothing illegal. He was in his late 40s, and he liked to hang out with girls in their early 20s. Around mid to the end of July, he took his summer vacation, before he would come back to Chicago to start the interviews and investigations. We found out that he went on vacation to LA, in California. So Don Pescara's idea was that he's spending time with his family in California. He shouldn't be as guarded and protected as he is here when he is working, in Chicago. So that was the perfect opportunity for us to get him. The next morning, Luigi and I landed at the airport of Los Angeles. We went to a storage unit that Luigi had arranged for us before we arrived. It took us 1 day to find out where he was staying and where we could get a hold of him. So we kidnapped him and took him to the storage unit. That storage unit was in a boat storage facility far outside the city of LA, and Luigi made sure he rented the whole block of units. We called Don Pescara to notify him that we did have the attorney with us. The boats arrived later that day at the airport where I went to get him. I drove him to the storage unit. Don Pescara started by telling the prosecuting attorney that we could have business together. He told him that this does not have to go the way he was planning it to go. That we could have some kind of agreement. And when this did not work, he started trying to scare him, telling him what we could do with his family and him. And after 2 hours of talking, Don Pescara didn't get anything done. He couldn't achieve anything of what he had planned to do. He couldn't convince him to back off, and he couldn't bribe him or scare him. So he looked at Luigi, letting him know it was time. The prosecuting attorney knew what that kind of look meant in the mafia world. So he started talking, and he said, "Let me ask you a question. Can you tell me why you only employ Italians, and you only work with Europeans and North Americans? Why are you never working with Arabs, Asians, or with the African Americans?" Do you know? I can tell you why. It is because Africans and Arabs took over your country long time ago, and their blood is mixed with yours. You know, a long time ago, you used to look like us, unlike the other European countries. You were white with blonde hair, but look at you now. You look like a mix of everything, and that's why you don't employ them or work with them. It's because you have that inner rage against them for what they have done with your people. You are very proud of being Italian, but think twice about it. You might be half African or Arab. Don Pescara was extremely angry. He took the gun from Luigi's hand and shot the prosecuting attorney twice in the face. Then he threw the gun away and yelled, "Son of a b***! I swear not to kill anyone anymore, and I haven't killed anyone in 30 years. The killing of that prosecuting attorney opened the doors of hell in our faces with the FBI.